Assalamualaikum and greetings to all. We are from Group C. We present about a study in Blackjack using mathematics approach behind gambling. This is our group member, Gan Shui Wen, Lim Zo Yen, Lam Su Ming, and Muhammad Adri bin Muhammad Zaimi. This is the content of our project. Start from introduction, followed by literature review, then followed by methodology, followed by results and finding, and lastly is conclusion. Me, Muhammad Adri bin Muhammad Zaimi, we start the presentation with introduction of development of gambling. Gambling is an activity which became a national craze after its appearance in 100 years ago. As time goes around 200 before century, a ticket version named as White Ticket Pigeon has been excavated with emitted by the province governor and is continued using today. Followed by the 9th century, cards are believed to designer and spread throughout Europe in a human form. Then continued by the modification of gambling, the first casino has been developed in Italy since 17th century. There are several platforms to provide gambling events such as casino, online casino, and lottery company. There are a lot of gambling happen inside the casino. The common one is baccarat, blackjack, craps, roulette, big six wheel, and slot machine. In this project, blackjack is selected since it seems baseless gossip to accommodate all the game exists. Although there are a lot of articles, news, shows always try to let the people know that gambling is not a good habit to practice in daily life. But most of the people are not care about it. They prefer to look forward to the high odds provided by the casino and hope that they can become rich by using small amount of money. Most of the people are more believe in themselves that their fortune and luck will show that their winning rate in the casino is far higher than the others. Next is problem statement. Gambling has gradually acted as harmless and or low risk social activity and more serious seem as a money trap to ruin the gambler's wealth. Yet this situation had caused the prevalence of gambling problem to increase in our country. The gambling makes certain people to addicted and they feel it is the easier way to earn the money. Generally, people are aware of the harm brought by gambling. However, they continue to gamble because of the high return and short time span. Some people say that gambling acts as investment. Low effort brings big return in a short period of time. Players always want to win as much money as they can in a short period of time. But it is important for the player to know that gambling is not the proper way to earn the money. In this project, we identified 4 objectives, which is to investigate the attractiveness of gambling towards people, to determine the probability of winning in blackjack for player, to determine the payoff of the game for the player in the long run, and lastly is to give awareness about the effect of gambling.
Hi, I'm Lam Su Ming, matrix number 254859. I will present about the literature review for our project. So, analyzing blackjack games problem has been widely discussed in the recent decades. For literature review based on problem and issue, Blackjack, it discussed that the blackjack game problem is about related to probability problem. For Gokman, it discussed the optimal blackjack solutions happens in the players. Ralph and Drew, Okoma, Oduro, and Alma, they discussed the optimal bet size for blackjack and the player's room problem which related to blackjack games. For Abe, Joseph, and Zhao, they discussed the behavior of the player, the cooperation between the players and player strategy which happens in the blackjack game. For Arthur and Eric, Zhang Kyongka and Shatu, they discuss other issues related to blackjack such as lucky bucks, about house money and the probability discounting and gambling happens in blackjack games. Okay, so there are several methods that has been used by previous researchers in their research. So like example, Moskowitz, it discussed the tools, the methods and the system used in the blackjack games. For Ryan, it uses Microsoft Excel to solve the problem related to blackjacks. For John, it uses discuss the exact calculation for the exact expected value of splitting pairs happens in the blackjack games. And to stimulate the blackjack games, some researchers found that there's some stimulations can be done through probabilistic modeling such as Monte Carlo and Markov chain, because those method involves randomness is selecting the sample of data. So for Isa, Andre, and Charles and Manson, they all uses Monte Carlo to stimulate their findings, such as the payoff of budget and the patterns of the poker cards are occurring. For Michael and Christopher, Steven, Wilson, Lana, Luis, and Joaquin, they all uses Markov chains to solve their as a method to solve their blackjack.
Hi, Doctor. My name is Lim Chong Yen with the metric number of 254519. And then I would like to continue with the part of methodology about how to play a blackjack game. So in the blackjack game, we got two profiles. One is called as player, another one is dealer. And basically, the player and the dealer will be distributed two cards for them, each of them. The goals for player to win blackjack is either to get the total sum of 21 points or the total sum points is greater than the dealer. While in this blackjack game, J, Q, and K can be counted as 10 points. So next, if the total sum of two initial cards are less than or equal to 15 points, the player will need to draw additional cards. And the maximum number of cards that can be drawn are 3. Else, if the player gets 16 or above or that, the player can either choose to draw or not to draw the card. So we got 4 situations at here. Let's say the first situation, with a 4 and the 10 points, the total is only 14, so it's not enough. We have to draw the card. So let's say the first card that we draw is 1. So it's just 15, still not hit the point because this is the minimum point. So we have to draw a card again. So another card that we draw is 2. So it's already come to 17 points. It's enough, but we can hit the card again. So let's say we will like to draw the additional card, but it's the last card. Okay, luckily we get the 4 point. So we get a 21 point. In the situation 2, we have the same initial 2 cards, but if we draw additional card, we get another 10. So it's already 24. It's already burst. And for the situation 3, we already get the enough point, but we can still choose to hit or stand. So for the very lucky situation, all of the player would like to get the situation 4 because the initial 2 cards already let them get the blackjack situation. So this is the profile of the blackjack game. If the player get a greater point than the dealer, so the winner is player. So if the player get the point less than the dealer, so it's considered loss to the dealer. The winner is dealer. So if both of them get the same point, so it's considered as a draw game. And another 2 situation, if the player get the point greater than 21, it's considered as birth. And they already lost the round. And if the initial card include as, that means got 2 ace. So the second ace can be counted as 1 point or 11 point. I would like to pass to my teammate. A set of data is collected by observing the 100 rounds of blackjack games played within a table text. The data collected included the number of times players chose to hit and stand, the number of cards drawn in hand, the number of times players win and lost, and the total gains obtained through the game. These frequencies will then be used in calculating the probability of occurrence and involved in the computation of cumulative frequency. In our project, we use Monte Carlo simulation. This simulation uses repeated random sampling from random number to obtain numerical result. It involves probability concepts. For this project, Monte Carlo is applied in occurrence of drawing cards, the result of player, that is win, loss, or fair, and the last one is the betting odds. To use Monte Carlo simulation, Firstly, a probability distribution for the input variables was established for calculating cumulative probabilities. The cumulative probabilities that had been calculated will be used as guideline to construct interval of random numbers for each variable. Then, by using Microsoft Excel's run bracket formula, a list of random number was generated. These random numbers were used to simulating a series of pairs for respective interests. Lastly, this project uses mathematical method and statistical method to calculate the expected value for comparison. This is the formula.
Hi, I'm Ganshavan. I would like to discuss in section 4, Result and Findings. In this session, result and findings through Monte Carlo simulation have been undertaken in 3 subcategories. The categories included the simulation for drawing the additional cards in 4.1, the simulation of result in Blackjack 4.2, and the simulation of winning odds 4.3. Besides, the comparison of result by using the numerical method and statistical method also included in the discussion below. Initially, players have an opportunity to choose either hit or stand in the blackjack game. As mentioned before, each of them possesses a right to hit a maximum of 3 cards, or stand without drawing any additional cards. With this sense, the player is in an intention to satisfy the minimum requirement, score of 16, and to bet the dealer by obtaining a score approximate to 21. In this report, the methods of computation for drawing additional cards are in terms of statistical and mathematical. Basically, the probability of occurrence for the players in drawing a number of cards is the core for measuring, no matter in statistical or mathematical method. In terms of statistics, the implemented of particular probability has enough, whereas with respect to mathematics, another 100 prior plays have been computed through Excel randomness. Within the frame, the core in statistical approach have acts as the supportive to endorse a specific interval of random numbers for the development of simulation. As a result, the player choose to stand in 25% of their total plays, in which they consider that their initial score was sufficient enough to bet with the dealer. However, about 75% of the play are stand in the contrast. The player has requests to obtain a 1, 2, 3 or more cards with the intention to fulfill the goals. Among the 75% of the play, 16% of the time, the player choose to hit only 1 card. This can be asserted that most of the time, an additional card is enough to either obtain a good score or result in a bust. Then, followed by a 28% play, the player draw another card again for their aims without getting bust before this. Lastly, only 8% of the play will move into obtaining the third additional cards. By collecting the third card, the player are claimed by the dealer to open all the face down cards. As long as the total scoring does not exceed 21, the player wins. In the double, else a loss. In average, the expected number of cards drawing are 1.12 and 1.11 for statistical and mathematical respectively. Supposedly, both will conclude a similar result. However, due to the constraint of randomness, a slight difference in expected value is common. From this, it introduced that normally the initial call in the blackjack game is insufficient to support the player to bet with the dealer. It requires 1 more card in average to achieve a higher score rather than draw more cards like 2 and 3. This is because the more the card drawn, the higher the score, the higher the probability trapped into a bust. Next is related to the result in blackjack. There are 3 possible outcomes in blackjack, which are win, loss, and also draw. From this perspective, +1, -1, and 0 are the points allocated for the 3 conditions respectively. Since winning in the game means something has been received as reward, plus 1 has been used. Conversely, minus 1 has been applied due to the prevalence of loss in a game. Then, if in a fair game, it demonstrates that no gain and no loss. Hence, 0 has been utilized. As similar as the first simulation, the probability of occurrence in resulting a win, loss, and fair has become the core in the statistical approach, and the in the word of random number has been used for the mathematical approach. From the findings, it denotes that more than half of the time, the players will obtain a loss, which is about 55%, and the remaining 45% of time, 85 of it will occur again, and only 15 of them will result in a draw game. In this term, it is possible to conclude that a negative outcome will always be produced for the blackjack gambling. The expected result in scoring are negative 0.17 and negative 0.22 for statistical and mathematical accordingly. It can be concluded that as long as involved in a blackjack gambling, the player's capital is expected to be perceived in a negative way. For example, player A is gambling in a blackjack and his bet is 1 ringgit per play. If he wins, he will reward another ringgit from the dealer, while if he lost, the 1 ringgit bet will be delivered to the dealer. And if the game is fair, no one will gain or lose something in the play. In this sense, the statistical expected value explains that the player A is predicted to lose a value of 17 cents in 100 of blackjack plays, while mathematically, player A is supposed to obtain a loss of 22 cents. Lastly, move to the most attractive path towards the player, which is always the betting odds. This can be seen. People are aware of the depreciation of gambling, but their pace towards gambling is continuous and never stops. The matter that fascinates the people is totally the betting odds. No matter an experienced player or a newbie, all are informed that they have a chance to earn more in gambling. As an experimentation in blackjack, the player will receive a higher reward, which seems as a multiple. Initially, the normal reward is said to be 1-to-1, means bet 1 ringgit, receive 1 ringgit. This payoff has been given if the player has a greater score from 16 to 20, or the dealer is in a box which the score is exceed 21. Wow! In terms of doubling payoff, bet 1 ringgit, reward 2 ringgit. The player should in either one condition. One is getting a score of 21 with additional cards, or can result if there is no cards within the maximum of 5 cards in hand. Finally, if the player is lucky enough and obtain a score of 21 score through the initial cards, he or she will reward a tripling, which is a bet 1 ringgit and get back 3 ringgit. Through this information, it gives an opportunity for the players involved in the gambling, and the difficulty to escape on the basis of betting odds appear. Similar as the simulation before, the table is illustrated about the probability of occurrence and the interval of random numbers. Through the result, it found out that 76 of the time the player wins in a normal, which gains a value they bet. In other words, the players are less likely to win a doubling or tripling in a blackjack game, since the respective probability are 16% and 8% respectively. In contrast with the output, it can summarize that the player will earn about 1 ringgit 32 cents and 1 ringgit 11 cents in average of each winning play respectively. This has expressed that majority of the time, the player will always win in a normal rather than obtaining a result for doubling and tripling. Now I would like to pass to my friend to continue it.
Lastly, we will be talking about the blackjack gambling return for the long run. So, apart from the stimulation, the final outcome after a certain number of plays in blackjack gambling can be enumerated, with the focus to define the harm in gambling. A comparison of output with different betting values have been shown in the graph here. So you can see that this is the betting amount, and then here is the profit loss in 100 rounds. So for information, this output has been calculated after assuming that players have put their bets in the same amount of money through this 100 round plays. So you can see that from the graph, in conclusion, the more the players bet, the more they lose. So after 100 rounds, you can see that it shows a decreasing straight line here.
After we have done the research, we have come to conclusion. In conclusion, blackjack is a famous game played in casinos. It is easy to play and does not require many items as long as the age is exceeding 21. Most of the people wish to earn money from blackjack, but the result shows that players will be losing money if they play for many plays. It is recommended for the people to seek to invest their money in assets and financial instruments rather than put their money to gambling. This is because it is possible to increase the rate of return through various strategies assigned only if the money is allocated in the investment purpose. Future study could include more realistic data from the casino platform around the world, not only blackjack. It is also possible to include other various games like the slot machine, baccarat, mahjong, and others. By studying different games, the hidden part of gambling may be discovered and help to alert the people. Besides, since this project is constrained by the limited time, a future research conducted with more specific mathematical model can be undertaken. That's all from us. Thank you.